This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon, actually, good evening. The time being 4:51 due to technical difficulties, I'd like to call this November 5th, 2020 meeting of the Tilton Select Board to order. Before we get started, if you're participating by phone or the GoToMeeting platform, please mute your microphone during the meeting unless you want to speak. Otherwise, background noises will interfere with the meeting. Select Board is meeting at Town Hall and providing access via the GoToMeeting platform and conference call to enable the public to observe it and listen contemporaneously to the meeting. Additionally, there's the opportunity for the public to attend the meeting in person. However, in order to maintain social distancing, only 8 spaces are available and attendance is on a first-come, first-served basis. Once the maximum has been reached, anyone wishing to participate in the meeting must do so remotely. If anyone has a problem with remote access to the meeting, please email web@tiltonnh.org, which will be monitored during the meeting. Would you stand and join me in the Pledge of the Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you ever so much. I'd like to bring the minutes of October 10th to the floor for discussion. Has anybody got any additions, corrections to those minutes?
I do.
Yeah?
This is, October 29th. This was, we met on October 29th, right?
These are the minutes of October 30th.
29.
Really? Okay,
So
I've got it written down different, but
under my report, it kind of goes into one thing. Pat reported that the crew had gone down to Atkinson, pick up donated wood for the coming construction and clean center elderly. And then she asked if anyone had a portable table saw they could borrow. Doesn't just sort of open ends there, like it just kind of is.
is there something that should be behind it?
Well, the prison people are doing the work for labor only, and we have to supply the tools. And I think that that's what we need to put in there, and where we have most of the tools needed except the table saw. And that's what we're looking for, a portable table saw. But all it says here is she asked if anybody had a portable table saw they could borrow, and there's no other anything else around it to say who or why or how. So
Okay. We can add that information.
the other was.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, is there any other changes or corrections? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
There was no motion yet.
Okay, well, that's how anxious I am, Peter.
I'll make
Okay, go ahead. No.
I'll make a motion, we approve the amended minutes of October 29th.
Second. We have a motion in a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're going to be going into non-public, but before we do, we have a special presentation we'd like to make to Catherine Dawson. Catherine, would you please come up here? Right out on the hand. Can you get it? I'll meet you in the.
Stand behind the table there. That way you'll be right in the screen.
This is
Trickery?
Catherine, I gotta know exactly which organization this is, and if I say it wrong, I'm gonna feel bad forever. Catherine, a couple months ago, we put your name in for a top 100 civic volunteer for the Small Town America Volunteer Program, and you were chosen. And from all of us,
wow,
to you, congratulations on this award.
wow.
Good job and well deserved.
Okay.
Is there money? Oh, it isn't written down here, but you have a couple of websites that are devoted to interest. A couple?
No.
One. Here's one website that they're going to put up devoted to something near and dear to you. So if you get with Jean Forrester, I'm sure that she'll get the information and make it real.
Oh, thank you, guys. Thank you, Jenny. Oh, wow. Yeah, okay.
So I'm just a little additional more, so across the country, people submitted names for awards for civic volunteers, volunteers in the community. Yours was one of 100 that was chosen for recognition, and this is a national award. So I think it's kind of cool, you know, everybody knows what you've done in the town
Wow.
of Tilton and the contributions you've made, but this now brings it to the national level.
Good work. Okay, thank you.
So you have the opportunity, part of the award besides the certificate is to have a free website for a year.
Okay.
And so the board talked about it and thought we should provide some feedback and input, because there's maybe there's something you would like to have a website up relative to parks or.
Well, I'll get you whatever best for the town, is best for me.
Perfect.
Well, thank you. This is amazing.
And under any other circumstances,
I know.
hug you.
We all would.
Thank you.
Thank you.
very much. Did I hear you're gonna go into a non-public?
We are.
I'll go down the back stairs. I got a little bit to do. Thank you. Good night.
Good night, Kevin.
Congratulations again, Catherine. Okay. The time being 5 o'clock straight up. Oh my goodness. 5 o'clock straight up. I'd like to make a motion to move into non-public session for RSA 91-A semicolon 3, paragraph 2A. The dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee or the disciplining of such employee or the investigation of any charges against them. And RSA 91-A semicolon 3, paragraph 2D, consideration of the acquisition, sale, or lease of real or personal property. We expect to be back into public session at approximately 6 p.m. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
We'll hold you to it.
I was afraid one of you guys were gonna say that someday. Hearing no other discussion, roll call vote.
Constitution.
Bog, yes.
Chessman, yes.
Ira, yes. Scanlon, yes.
We stand adjourned. Actually, we
This conference will now be recorded.
6:31. I'd like to make a motion to seal the minutes of the non-public session of November 5th, 2020, because the reasons justifying the need but non-public sessions still exist. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Or is there any discussion right out of the gate? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Okay, Mr. Pearson, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. I'll try to be brief and get you along on your meeting. So a couple of things. In the Sign Now app, there's a request for another $1 million in TAN withdrawal and $563,697.92 for a ban withdrawal. The ban is covering both the cost of the tower that you'll see in the payables as soon as I get back down to my office, and also Milestone's October requisition.
I didn't see either one of those.
In addition, I had a couple of notes that you can read at your leisure, but New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank did a refinancing of some of the longer-term debt. And there's being another $26,000 in savings from this refinancing. We don't really have any control over when they do this sort of thing. But in total, they've done some back in 2019. So in total now, we've seen a savings of about $102,000. I don't have the breakdown yet as to how that is distributed over the years, but generally speaking, it's obviously not in 1 year, it's spread out. I've got some other notes on the barcoding and evidence project and the agreements that were approved last week, the projects that were approved, and the work on the agreements is ongoing. Just a point of good news is that the total cost of the barcoding and evidence is going to be less than we originally projected. Most importantly, I wanted to go through just two things. One is you have a new operating budget departmental request copy, and the reason for that is there are a few changes. First of all, there was one employee that had not been determined when you first looked at this last week. So the board had determined that employee's wage. So that's in here, as well as the board signed the merit transfers, the budget transfers for the merit lines. So all those were reflected in here. And then we received a 5% notice of 5% increase on the police department's application software. And we really don't have any choice. It is pretty much a monopoly in the industry. Most of New Hampshire uses this product. And so that's reflected in here. And then also the Public Works Director made a change to his overtime, which as he's coming in later, I'll leave for him to go over with you. Yes, great. So what I wanted to spend the majority of the few minutes I have with you is on the tax rate setting. So you should have a sheet that looks like this that has at the top estimated 2020 tax rate awaiting DRA review. And this is slightly changed from the one I emailed you earlier today in that the county tax went down slightly. I had a new number for that. So in any event, on this sheet you're looking at on the left side, 2019. At the top, it shows you what the components were, what the valuation is used to determine that tax rate, and then you can see the tax rate in that column showing the total of $22.06 for 2020. And keep in mind, because the way the municipal portal works through Department of Revenue, all the associated entities, so meaning Tilton Northfield Fire, Winnisquam Schools, the town, Tilton Northfield Water District, and Lockmere Village District, all put their documents into this portal under each of their entities. And we're unable to set our tax rate until everybody else has their work in there. So particularly where it's a village district. So we're waiting on a village district, and DRA has talked to the principal person there that's working on this paperwork, and they are fairly certain we're going to have this very soon. Unfortunately, the portal doesn't open up for me to look at any of the tax rate information. I got to go back to the source document. So that's what I did here. And I have a very high confidence factor that these numbers are correct. And this is largely where our tax rate is going to be, with the exception of possibly some rounding, which every year there's always some odd round to something. But in any event, you can see that that based on the information below from our 232, which is our appropriation for the year, our revenues. Now keep in mind that the way DRA looks at your appropriations and revenues, they take an entire bond amount and they work that through the same year, because otherwise your appropriations or revenues would be way, way off. So even though that may be spent over a period of time, that's the way that they work it for the tax rate. So that's why you see the 10,700,000 and the 7 million offset. So those are the appropriation and our tax rate. And those came from our documents earlier in the year that we submitted. Here, I'm showing that we're not using any fund balance in this particular model. And then the war service credits of 105,500 and overlay of 33,000 leaves us a municipal tax effort of $3,835,806. So that's the net amount that we have to raise to run the town after our revenues. So that works out to be a tax rate of $6.06, or a reduction of 32 cents from last year. You can see the county is a reduction of 4 cents. The school is a reduction of 74 cents. And state education reduction of 2 cents. Fire district reduction of 16 cents. So in total, if my figures are correct, and there's a big asterisk next to that, but it looks like we'll be going down about $1.28 without any use of fund balance. I did put together a table for you so you can see the amount of fund balance used in there. So if you were to reduce, say, or if you were to use $100,000 of fund balance, that would take that decrease from $1.28 to $1.42, and it would make our tax rate $20.64. So right now, given the fact that our municipal budget, operating budget, is up 5.2% for 2021, both Jeannie and I felt that no matter where this rate comes in, whether we're a few pennies off here or there, that with that reduction, that should be sufficient for 2020, and keep the powder dry for 2021, so that we can really help to offset that 5.2% at the end of the year.
How much money is in the fund right now?
I want to say 763. I should have checked that before I came up. So we have money that we could apply. Last year we used 175,000 of fund balance, but again, it's as you can see, using the fund balance doesn't do a lot for us this year in terms of real reduction in rate. If you look at the difference there. So in any case, that's what we're looking at. We could have the rate in a few days. So I know you're not planning on having a meeting next week, but if we had a short 15-minute meeting, or something along those lines, I'm sure we could get this done.
What if we just motioned to allow you to set the rate if it's within a certain parameter?
And that's fine as well. DRA doesn't require the board to sign anything. It can be done very easily through the portal.
So I move that we allow Tim, right? Because you're going to set the rate. Is it Tim and Jeannie, or is it just Tim?
Can be both of us, that's fine. Yeah.
Tim and Jeannie to set the rate as long as the parameters are within $1.20.
$1.20 reduction.
With no use of fund balance,
Is there a
as
second?
recommended by the finance director.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. And before I leave, I'm just gonna give you my keys, Tim. You're in charge now.
Hey, Tim, when I got the can, it says add text, not add signature.
Oh, okay, I had to do it very quickly, so I'll recheck
I don't know
that.
if that.
I thought there was an actual thing to sign.
There should be, I will,
We're good.
I got a text from Jeannie saying I had 10 minutes left, and so the mouse was flying and the brain was bowing at quite a distance, so I'll correct that when I get downstairs.
I just.
Thank you for letting me know.
I just-
Okay.
I'll resend it.
Is there any other questions for the finance, IT? Thank you ever so much.
Witness.
Okay, Kevin, you're up. You have 3.5 minutes. Make it quick. Just a little joke there, right?
18.
18 minutes.
Never gonna say it's good.
We'll do what we can do.
No.
You have the floor.
Hello.
Oh,
We're discussing my budget.
Yep.
Just a few changes this year.
Yeah.
Obviously, the big one is the addition of a crew member, which is working out very well. But good things to say about that addition. I was able to go through my budget and make some really big changes as far as I'm concerned, or I think. The biggest change would be with my salt line. I'm looking to reduce that by $10,000. There's a couple of reasons for that. That is, we have a bunch of new road surface to maintain this year. And when you have a new road surface and there's more foul contact with the road, it takes less salt to remove the ice and snow, because you're not trying to, you're being more effective with the plows.
Question on
Sure.
that? When you have a new road surface,
Mhm.
isn't it it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is the way I've learned it from other people in the past, that the oil content in that new surface is more prominent than an old surface, such as a 10-year-old road.
That is correct.
So it's more greasier.
It is the initial first couple of months, since we've had the summer for it to cure with multiple rainstorms and vehicles traveling on the road surfaces. That's not as big of an issue as if it was freshly paved.
I trust you on that one.
The water doesn't beat on it as much like it used to, exactly. The second decrease, or the largest decrease, would be the overtime budget, or the overtime line. I'm not sure if you have an updated list, because I just, okay, so you just said. I came up with that reduction because we have an additional guy, the added crew member, and I'll be able to strategically place people in specific times and locations to hopefully minimize the overtime by adjusting schedules of that nature. In this strange times that we're in with COVID and everything else going on, that's a reality this year. Some people, there's going to be an adjustment of scheduling to keep our costs down. And the crew members are aware of this. I've had numerous conversations.
Just general feelings.
They're okay with it.
They understand.
They understand, they're okay with it, and they're all working very well as a team, and they understand the struggles that we face this year, and they're all willing to do their part, which is really nice to see as a manager. So that was the second largest reduction. The other reductions were just I wanted to trim just a little bit more because the education line, this year I'm going to try to utilize more of the free courses that are available through Primex. And these days where everything is all web-based, it's just a registration fee. And you go online. So that there's going to be a reduction in cost that way. Now, I am prepared to do some other adjustments throughout the year if needed. The other obvious increase that I was facing this year was my uniform budget because of the additional guy. But what I've done was I've actually reduced my uniforms because I'm not in the field like these guys all the time. I've actually taken the high vis off of my daily uniform and just kept it on my jacket. And I've adjusted it so that the added guy isn't really an increase in my uniform. So there's some small adjustments that I've made. They're not huge, but I know that every little bit counts. Yes,
Miscellaneous expense.
yes,
We budgeted 1,500, but we spent 2,400.
that's correct.
And I just wondered what miscellaneous expense was, because I see you only requested 1,500 again. So what was the 2,400?
When we brought the town's signage up to specs this year, the cost of the signs were a lot higher than I had anticipated because midway through, they changed their system and how they built the signs. So there was an added cost for that.
And that's where, that went into miscellaneous expense?
Yes, I actually had a discussion with Tim about that, and some of that was supposed to be moved, or the signs that I put in that line were supposed to be put into road materials and safety, which is the lines that it was supposed to be allotted for. So there was a little adjustment internally that has to happen.
So that's not going to be a reoccurring expense.
It is not. That was a one-time occurrence this year. All of our signs are up to date. So that's not a cost that I'm looking at this year. And it was right around $3,500 all said and done to get all the signs up to date. Because not only did we purchase the signs, but I also purchased brackets to put them in their proper place. Like on Manville, the sign was located on the telephone pole that was 30 feet from the road. We located it on top of the stop sign at the road intersection. So there was adjustments like that. We didn't just replace the signs. I actually went through and looked at the intersections and where they were supposed to be placed and made those adjustments. And the sign brackets are expensive because the signs are bigger and they needed to be changed out.
Why wouldn't that have come out of the signs and safety?
Well, that's just it. It should have been. That's why I saw that it hadn't been applied to that. And I had a conversation with Tim.
Building repairs, we had a $3,000 budget, you spent just about $2,000. What kind of building repairs do you anticipate in next year?
Next year, we're going to be servicing all of the heaters. This year was some maintenance.
How many are all the heaters?
I'm sorry, there's 5 gas or natural gas heaters that are going to need to be serviced next year. This year, I was able to repair 2 of them through a simple diag situation because they weren't coming on. But next year, they're going to have to be cleaned and actually serviced by a licensed technician. This year, there was a lot of work done on we were able to do it in-house, but a lot of the overhead doors needed some work.
Anybody else have any questions for Kevin? Eric?
I just would have thought with more people, there would be more overtime, but I guess my concern is, God forbid, what happens if we get a case down there, a COVID case down there?
Well, then all bets are off. I mean, I would like to think that, at that point, I would come to the selectmen and say, okay, we've got a situation and make adjustments as we go. Now,
I'm not hoping that.
no,
From online to
Okay.
but without getting into too much detail of my personnel, the adjustments that I can make to keep that overtime down, I have more flexibility this year because of the number of guys I have. So if I can make adjusted schedules, so to keep maybe everybody at 45 hours a week instead of 70 hours a week, then I'll do that.
Now, this is only because I'm new.
Mhm.
So when we see them cleaning it downtown,
Yep.
is that all in overtime, or is that, okay, they didn't work during the day on Wednesday, they're out Wednesday night doing?
Yep.
Is that how that works? Or?
That's how I can do it this year, exactly.
When you, are you changing any of the routes with the people on this year?
Actually, let me back that up a second. I am making a small adjustment because of what transpired this past summer with one of my crew members. Just to avoid any mishaps. Trying to stay within the, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
I have made some small adjustments, but not huge adjustments. Everybody's still going to be utilized to their capacity. I feel pretty good going into this next winter season. So can I just add one more
You
thing?
sure can.
So the reduction in my salt budget, there was another factor in that. I looked at how much I had carried over the summertime that was left over from last year. Now, I had about 60 tons of material left over from last year. So taking that in accounts, plus the new roads and our adjusted salt schedules and how we're applying it, this reduction is very conservative. Hoping that maybe next year I'll be able to reduce it a little bit more. So it's a work in progress, and I'm always trying to fine tune specific lines and things like that.
I say one thing, I gotta tell you, I saw a leaf, build that you, how you house the leaf. Has anybody else seen the contraption that he built to house the leaves that he hosed
The leaf box.
back up the leaf box? Looks like a house in the back of the dump truck.
Yeah.
Made out of, the like steel roofing.
Metal roofing, and it was actually an aluminum frame that Jeannie's had donated to the town.
Yeah.
We picked it up, and in the past, it was this big wooden box that had to be put together and dismantled every year. And it was just time consuming and labor intensive. Take a day to do it with 2 or 3 guys. This unit's actually light enough, it gets put on there but with 4 guys. It just gets bolted on there and bolted down.
Brilliant.
They put it
It's
together.
absolutely brilliant.
So
I have to ask this question about salt, because I love the fact that you're reducing salt usage, but I have to ask this because I'm a selectman now and I can ask this question.
Sure.
You come down my street, okay, and you salt my street, and you go around the corner and you salt the next street. Then 5 minutes later, because you're using a wing plow on my street,
plow it up into the ditch.
you're coming back and you're plowing up that salt and you're salting again. Why?
Well, those
Why
are,
don't you always salt in the last, like the final plow through? Not, I'm not saying the final plow through, but like on the second trip.
the reason why we keep applying salt is to keep it from becoming a hard pack of snow. Because then it adds time to the cleanup at the end of the storm. If we keep the salt content on the road, it keeps it loose, it keeps it from hard packing into ice. And then we're chasing it twice as long at the end of the storm trying to fill the roads up. Now, there are some things that I've noticed over the last year or two of bad practice that I'm trying to correct with my personnel, only because it was the mindset, it was just how they did things. And I'm trying to streamline these guys into being a little more effective with their salt application. And for instance, last year I followed one of my trucks. I'm not going to get into specifics, but he was casting his salt into the ditch lines. I followed him, and that was the only reason why I saw it, was because I followed him. I stopped in mid-route and I said, okay, we've got to adjust this because we're losing so much material. Then this past Tuesday morning, one of my sanders the door was completely open. There's adjustments to the door, the back door that allows this material out. Well, it was completely open and it wasn't noticed right away. So if you drive around town, you notice that there's a lot of salt on the road. So those are the things I'm trying to correct with my department. Is just to be more aware of what they're doing out there when they're plowing. And to be more cautious of being wasteful.
That's when you see the neighbors with the shovels in the middle of the road.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
no,
pretty simple.
yeah, it's just something like, oh,
See right here in
Yeah.
the town park. I mean, I'm on my crew trying to get them to think more like, okay, we need to tighten the purse string. We need to.
It's not even about the purse for me, because if they're throwing salt out in the ditch, that hurts the ditch and the plants and bugs and whatever, and I know that sounds stupid, death to bugs and
No,
what have you, but
it's food, so I like it. It's from
I get that.
It's an ongoing struggle throughout the year to make sure that everything is.
Yeah.
Because I do
You have
feel
a
the
check.
phone calls.
Do you have a checklist when the drivers get in the truck? Do they have a checklist?
You know,
We have gas, we have the sander is set at, whatever it is. Is there some kind of safety check, bang the tires? No?
No, well, they're supposed to check their equipment, right?
Yes.
Supposed.
Well, the checklist can be a mental checklist. It can be up there on the wall and say, did you check the level of your sander door or whatever it is that.
Every once in a while, I do have to push the reset button with my crew. Yes, okay, bring it back to reality. I mean,
With everybody, even somebody who's been on the job for 20 years, you have to.
that is exactly that, yes.
So
Okay.
I was curious, man.
I don't know, I appreciate the question.
Is there any other questions?
You're welcome to take a ride with us.
No, I actually like that you changed the route when you came on board, because they don't come around and put the whole intersection in my driveway.
Yeah.
So I actually like that they go all the way down the end of the road, so thank you.
I think you should take them up on his offer.
I'm gonna take them up.
I went out with Arthur one night and it was very interesting.
I think Arthur used to do my street,
Yeah, he did.
but he used to make the right turn on the high street, and with the wind cloud, they get the whole, by the time all the snow comes to the end, it was like, we'd have 2 inches of snow and have a 3-foot snow bank.
Why'd you piss Arthur off?
So I used to try to drive him with alcohol.
I think we've all, is everybody taking a highway drive?
I'm
In
gonna.
No.
the middle of winter?
No.
You should just call him up.
I had a 3/4 ton. I've done enough plowing.
Okay.
Just to see what they go through. I went through the tree streets and cars parked in the road and Arthur made it within an inch of the abutment. Very good.
Municipalities
Okay.
don't follow rules.
Okay, we're out of control now. Thank you very much,
Thank you very much.
Mr. Duval.
I will take you up in your office.
I miss you. I miss you at the NRA Zoom
Yes,
meeting or whatever. I've got some information I'll give you later.
Okay, really quick, I was dealing with a resident had called in, said that utility was jackhammering mining roads. So I.
Fact is, that you have to do what you have to do. I don't say I missed you and I'll give you the information.
I didn't realize we went into one of those roads.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
I-
Watch your traffic going home.
Yes.
And we've come back onto the schedule. Next up is John Scanlon and solar power.
We'll give him a half hour.
Okay. Maybe that's the me time. Maybe it'll be 5 minutes.
You.
So anyway, we've been talking for a few years on that we should set up some type of ordinance on planning that on ordinance for solar energy systems. Well, I did a bunch of research and a lot of towns and cities in New Hampshire have been establishing them. And it just gives some guidelines. It's nothing to do with the taxes or who gets taxed or anything like that. It's more to, as we become more less dependent of fossil fuels and solar energy, wind energy. It's important that we have some guidelines to go by when they're constructed. So I just did some research, and we need to, I'll get together on this, and we should probably be having some, look at it, have some public hearings, and, fully vet out the process on it. I made some copies, my copier. And I also sent some things. I figured, well, people might not have seen it. This is-
Seen it.
I haven't seen anything from you, John.
I sent it to you a couple weeks ago and reminded you and asked if everybody read it. See, I knew it. That's why I brought it. Right.
Oh, no, that's a totally good thing.
Yep. And so that's just, this is one that,
Isn't this a planning board issue?
But they would have to go forward.
the idea is that right now, when somebody goes for solar, there's no real guidelines for it or anything. So we should be encouraging to get something together. When Durham did it, they used the Energy Committee along with the Planning Board, and that gave them some direction and encouraged them to establish something. So I'm just wondering what other people's thoughts are on it. If you looked at it, there's certain things, such as, if you have a 20-foot setback from the road, and somebody wants their house is 50 feet back. If they want to put solar in, I mean, technically they could put between that 20 feet and the 60 feet, could put 40 feet of solar at pretty much any height, and you leave it to the planning board to try and sort out what we want and what we would like our town to look like. If you go down Main Street or a historical district, you may not want to see all of the yards, the front yards filled with solar. You may want to only have them on people's roofs or, on the side yards or the backyards. So that's one of the things that we need to at least establish some type of guidelines so that give uniformity. So I've got some discussion.
Is this up to the board to establish the conformity, or is this up to being in the master plan?
It'd be the planning board.
Planning board.
It's up to the planning board. However, if we don't encourage it and start something going, it could be produced by a resident. It could be anybody. But it needs to, it really does need to be addressed.
They have to put it in a master plan of some sort, right? In order for it to be.
Yeah, I believe so, but thing is, it does have to come from the planning board as far as I know.
Well, the ordinance could be put on the warrant from
Warrant
residents.
article.
Or
New ordinance.
a resident, absolutely. And
So,
you
but
are a
any-
resident, John, all you have to do is have a certain
So,
amount of signatures.
well, I'm looking for, how the selectmen feel about. Do they feel that this is an area we should be having an ordinance with?
I like the fact that we would have clear guidelines going forward for the installation of solar energy. I haven't read the paper and I missed your
September 30th.
September 30th.
Does this pertain to solar farms?
Well, it depends on how it would be. This is not, I'm just saying, this is a template for us to get started.
Right?
To start getting started. If you go to Durham, and it's really interesting, if you look up the solar and look at Durham and how many public hearings they had And all the comments are in there, as well as all the letters from everybody on for or against it, and the adjustments that were made.
Well, it's funny, we had a recent project that was a solar farm, if you will, on Route 3. And there's, from what I've seen, there's potential for some more. There's a company working with residents
And,
in some of the rural agriculture areas.
as you can see, you know, there were some neighbors that were concerned with that one because it was so close to the road, you know, on our gateway into the lakes.
Yeah.
And eventually you could end up with, and you could have, like, such as Catherine Dawson's farm, the whole front yard could be all blocked and filled with solar at any height. And then, you know, you could go, you know, possibly on the other side of the road, so you could actually be, this is exaggerating a little bit, but it is kind of loud once, if you don't set some guidelines that are very reasonable, so
No
people
buffer.
can.
Tree buffer, or I know it sounds oxymoron of a solar farm, but now that the leaves are down for fall, I've traveled over Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. I've seen a lot of solar farms. But one thing I noticed, one, you can't see them in the summertime. Two, they all seem to have a buffer of trees around them. You know, if it was you know, on a 30-acre parcel of land, there was a buffer of trees around them. And then, obviously, if there's a fall zone, or a shadow zone.
It's definitely worth looking into.
I read it before, because it's something I think the planning board has brought up, but unfortunately, we have not had a workshop session. So was this forwarded to Leanne, do you know?
No, I want to see, you know, see what you folks thought.
I think it's something we should share. I'll take a hard email copy.
Well, you can start with the paper also.
I'll give it to another board.
Yeah, that's fine.
I've got, yeah, I printed these at home, so, copies. I don't use my printer much, as you can see, it's a few colors. I do have other copies that
No, it's good.
could be shared.
Well, let me take one to Jane. She's the chair.
And by all means, you know, it's to start to get people to start looking at some of the different ones.
Yeah.
And get an idea on that it's not restricting people from.
Well, this refers to their 2015 master plan.
Mhm.
In the town, what the town is in Durham. It's Durham, New Hampshire. Could be Durham, North Carolina.
So that's that about the ordinance and the solar. One of the other things that a few weeks ago, Leanne brought to us, a request to change the fees for solar for the inspections and charge per panel and stuff like that. And we rejected that just to charge regular $45, I believe was electrical fee. One thing we need to consider that as we charge fees for inspections and for like Al to go out there, quantities and the actual cost it is to the town. If they build, I think it's 3,000 per acre or something of solar panels, and we have Al go out there to be inspecting these, and we have 200 acres, how much is time and what is this going to cost Al? Or, you know, would we have sufficient money to hire somebody else to do structural inspections, electrical inspections of, you know, certain things? So, you know, at a small scale, in residential, you know, that's one thing. But once you get into all of our building inspection fees that we have now are based on square footage and size, so that it does bring up the rate to cover for the time that it takes to do it. So I'm not as for motion or anything, but we might want to reconsider that and ask Leanne now to maybe explain that a little bit more.
Peter?
Regarding a large-scale solar project, unless this board caves and does a pilot, you're not gonna see it here because you're gonna be taxing it. It's gonna be cost prohibitive. So to me, it's a moot point.
We'll see how it plays out. That one went in on Route 3.
That doesn't have a pilot.
No, it doesn't. Or isn't that the same one that asked for a pilot?
They asked for one.
And we said no.
The one up on Caleb Hill, my guess is gonna look for a pilot.
Well, I can't say no right now because I haven't seen their proposal, but in the past, I have been unconvinced by pilots that,
All that is a win-win for the people that submit the application.
so no.
And I'm not intending to, pick on anybody for putting in solar farms or anything like that. It's just so that if somebody does, and it does become enough money or profitable for them that they do want to do it with or without a pilot, that we are covered for our expenses to perform these inspections. And that's all. I think they had like $10 a panel, which or something, which was maybe a little high, but I think maybe we should, that's all, look into it a little more.
Is there any other questions for John about solar at this time?
When do we throw in wind? You got some high elevations there. You can put up some windmills.
You could, and well worth looking at. Okay, there's no other questions and you have no other presentation.
I did a lot of time.
Okay, well, then we're moving on to the selectmen's reports. And the first one up is Peter Falk.
I would like to thank all the people who put in time Tuesday at the election polls. And in particular, I'd like to give some kudos to the moderator, Chuck Mitchell, and his wife, Kathy Mitchell, who spent countless hours preparing for it and set up a voting day that I think ran rather smoothly. That's it, Joe.
I second that.
Yeah, I'm next, and that pretty much wipes out my report.
Sorry, I stole your thunder.
No. I will say that I attended it wasn't Zoom, but it's kind of Zoom, one of those platforms, a meeting of the NRRA. And the main, there was a board of several board members and a new executive director, very cut and dry. The budget isn't up. Everything is everything with them. The one thing was that during the presentation, they gave a overview of what's going on in the recycling market, and the market for single stream recyclables is tanking. It just costs a lot of money to separate the stuff, so there's no profit in it. And I understand that Director Duval has some ideas on the subject, but if we did some separating, we used to separate newsprint.
What do they pay? What is their money in, Joe?
Newsprint.
Really? I would have figured cardboard and metal.
Well, right behind cardboard, right behind that is cardboard. There's the.
I thought paper was more or less trash.
That is cardboard. Paper, newsprint is, they're paying $70 a ton.
For lack of newspapers.
Don't know, there's not so many newspapers around anymore. They don't sound like they.
Oh, so newspapers, but not this paper. It's like
Well,
trash.
well, they don't, the guy said oddly enough, this stuff.
Yeah.
Office waste, they turn into textbooks. But with the advent of online education, the market for textbook papers has just gone down. I'm just reporting what he said. And plastics, unless gas goes back up, it's almost cheaper to dig oil out of the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get refine it and take that sludge they make plastics out of than it is to recycle. China, I don't think they've done it yet, but like real quick, no longer accepting any shipments of recycled materials to land at their docks. So that was the biggest market. Other than that, it's India. And India is thinking along the same lines. If we don't separate our trash, it's gonna cost us, separate our recyclables, and we could at least pay for the recycling part of it, or we pay to get rid of it. Or we stop recycling altogether, which is definitely an option I don't like to talk about, but financially, not recycling at all and just bringing it to Pennacook is the most cost efficient and way to do it. John?
Joe, is there any timeline on how long the Pennacook plant will be operating? I mean, I've heard that.
They have to go, I think it's 2025 right now that there's a contract between us, the towns and what have you, and the Wheelabrator to bring our trash there. And the rates have been set. But beyond that and the aging infrastructure down there in Pennacook, there's no way of knowing. There is no close by landfills. And the landfills up north are starting, I mean, they haven't reached capacity, but these places don't want 300 acres of trash in their town. And they can only take so much. So, I mean, burying this stuff is not feasible forever. I don't know what the answer to this is, John, but we have several years before the next round of upgrades to the plant, or
Before it hits the fan.
before it hits the fan.
Can we pay a fine if we don't supply them with enough trash?
Well, currently, we have a required amount of tonnage. We've never failed to hit it, so it hasn't been an issue.
We win.
The big thing with the minimum amount of trash was when Concord, who was delivering 25,000 tons, pulled their tonnage. They decided they could do better, and they're trucking it up north because they're trucking it up north. They truck to Rochester, depending on what it is. C&D goes to Rochester, and MSW, Municipal Solid Waste, goes up to Bethlehem.
Yeah.
So there you have it. That is the state of recycling. Although working through the NRRA, we've diverted a lot of batteries and propane tanks and refrigerators and things from the environment that, I don't care what they say, those scrubbers on the top of that smokestack in Pennacook can't be, every time I drive by there, I find it's a horror show. I don't think it's a good idea to put that stuff up in the atmosphere. But
Well, is it smoke or steam? I'd have to look at the stat closely.
sometimes it's smoke, sometimes it's steam. In the cold weather, you see a lot of steam coming up. Sometimes you'll see smoke come out of that thing. And just because it's scrubbed of particulates doesn't mean that there's still, I mean, they scrub out certain things and then not other things. You burn a wood fire, if it's just wood, well, that's wood, right? If you burn a wood fire with a big couch on it and you're burning all that material, you need a scrubber. It's still gonna be.
But if the scrubber isn't working properly, that's where you get your dust and smoke.
Okay, I get to give my report just like you will. Okay, let's just move right on then. Eric, you're up.
Oh, Peter took my thunder on one thing, the voting. Still defrosting. And there was an email thread this morning, so I'd like to request that those emails become part of the public minutes of this meeting, because I felt like it was partially a meeting.
Oh, that was on my list.
I would say this, you can have discussions only that you can't make decisions via email. So I can provide you information, but there should be no decisions that would be considered a public meeting.
Okay.
And I did say we discussed it tonight. We'll do that under other business.
Okay, I just throwing it out there.
Okay,
I'm good.
okay. John, you're up.
I think everything's been discussed.
We're moving right along. Pat, you're up.
I have one thing that's either tonight or in 2 weeks for non-public for COVID enforcement. That's it. I'm done.
Okay. And that completes that section of the agenda. Jeannie Forrester, you are up.
We all got, my report, the first action item is the health trust transmittal letter. This is
Can't hear you, Jim.
the first item is a health trust transmittal letter that I need to have you sign. This is for the new rates for our health insurance.
Do we need a motion to sign it?
I don't think so. You have it in the past.
No, Jeannie's got it on her.
Well, while that's going around, the second item, Lakes Region Planning Commission membership. We did receive a letter from Lakes Region Planning Commission telling us, according to their bylaws, where 3 consecutive meetings, according to their bylaws, they had to notify the town and the planning board that those meetings had been met. We probably saw an email earlier today from a member of the public volunteering to serve on the committee. Currently, the commission the members are Selectman Jessman and myself. I was always under the impression that I was an alternate, but I learned today that I'm actually a full-time member as well. I believe I was put on because our land use, our planner had left. And so I was put on. So the question really for the board is, Joe, do you want to remain on as a commission member? And second, do you want me, or would you rather have the land use coordinator be the other commissioner?
Well, I apologize first off for being absent. I'm usually pretty good at going to meetings, but this just got by me. I personally feel that if the land use coordinator is going to take this on, the land use coordinator could get the most out of going to these meetings. Truly. So that would be my suggestion. And notwithstanding Juliet's kind offer to represent the town, I think it's probably in our best interest overall to have Leanne go. I would make a motion to the effect that if Leanne should be willing to accept the appointment, that we appoint Leanne Wanahan as our representative of the Lakes Region Planning Commission. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. What, Pat?
Nothing. I think it should be Jeannie and then, and Leanne.
We can
Jeannie's
also
put it
appoint
to
Jeannie.
Economic development. You appointed.
We can also appoint Jeannie. There's nothing that says we can't.
Is well, I thought Jeannie was already on there,
I am.
and then he was giving up his position so that Leanne would be on there.
That's
If I
correct.
understood-
Jeannie has decided she wants to continue to serve. So hallelujah, and that goes on. As far as my position comes, I would like to see, I would prefer to see Leanne yet. Quite frankly.
She okay to make it to the meetings?
I haven't asked her. I'm sure she would be interested, and it is appropriate. It's within her purview. And I would be interested in continuing myself just as passive because of the economic development aspects and learning about grant opportunities and that sort of thing.
I think at one time it was Dari and I.
I've been on it in years past myself. At this time, I would like to amend my own motion to also include Jeannie for the appointment of Jeannie for reappointment of Jeannie Forrester to that position. Is there a second to my amendment?
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the amendment. Is there any discussion? We're voting on the amendment, and only amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Is there any further discussion on the main motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you.
Could you perhaps get in touch with Juliet and thank her for her kind offer to come forward?
I will do that.
Thank you very much.
So the next item is performance reviews. You all signed off on the PARs last week, but the actual performance reviews need to be signed. So I'm gonna pass those out. Ask you to sign. This is Kim's, sorry.
Where was that?
That video of that.
Thank you, sorry.
I don't know if anyone has any questions for me with my FYIs.
Um, under your FYI, the first one.
Yeah.
Is that for the ballpark end of it?
No, it's the parking lot.
That's for the parking lot itself?
Yes, it's for the parking lot and the drive to the parking lot. So the only other comments I wanted to make is I just wanted to publicly thank Leanne and Janice, Leanne Moynihan and Janice, their approach. You know, they showed some real initiative in an effort they put forth this last week during the election by getting a help there in the fold and trying to get people interested in joining some of our boards, committees, and commissions, because we do need volunteers. And Janice, Leanne reported back to me that she had about 15 serious inquiries of people who were interested in serving on various committees. So she's hopeful that we'll get some more people interested, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that they, ran above and beyond.
They were funny. They were entertaining.
Did you all fix the date for your triangulation or?
No, we haven't discussed it.
That's all I have.
I think that we talked and because of COVID, we couldn't do it with the barbecue, remember, an employee barbecue, and now Christmas is coming up, the holidays are coming up. Do you think that we could probably do, not we, and not have the selectmen involved, but maybe do a staff meeting outside the realm of a staff meeting, like maybe at Onions or something, and do something special for the employees that, this has been an unusual year, and particularly the people here, they've gone way above and beyond during this whole keeping it together, this whole COVID thing. And you folks have been our backbone throughout this whole mess that we're in. I think that we really need to stop and think about our employees and what they've done for us and what they continue to do for us. And I think that instead of having like your quarterly, monthly, whatever, just have it someplace special that where what you could do, but perhaps maybe just something different out of the realm of just sitting around the table and talking about, like a dinner meeting, but just have like a nice luncheon someplace.
You have to leave your name and number, Pat. Just saying.
Well, you can leave your name and number. I've been to a restaurant where I had to leave a name and number. It's okay.
Big Chinese.
I think
Dead
that's,
Chinese.
I think that's a nice idea. I will tell you, it has been a particularly, I don't know, if impressive is the right word, but with COVID, but what I have really appreciated about the folks at Town Hall anyway is, they're enthusiastic. I mean, look at, they all went out, put up the lights, Halloween lights. They didn't have to do that. We went out today and took them down. Everybody had fun. It was, they weren't, no one asked them to do it. They showed initiative to do it. I really appreciate that. I think we had fun here at Town Hall. We all got dressed up for Halloween. I don't know if you saw us. We were the Cruella de Vil.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, I missed that one.
Tim was for us. And we had a lot of Dalmatians running around Town Hall.
That's good.
And they all had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun. So I think we're, we injected a little fun today.
I think that we should do something to let them know that we appreciate that. We're not doing Christmas, I just think that we didn't, we slapped the idea of the paid time off thing. I just think that I'm thinking that we should do something. I don't care what we do, but I think we should at least do something. Maybe somebody has some ideas that we could do. Thank our employees for going above and beyond this year.
We haven't done anything. Some of that stuff.
As long as it's summertime, I'm in.
I think I'd be probably the first one requested.
I appreciate that, and I'm sure the employees.
Oh, sorry.
No problem.
Oh, no, I'm not signing that.
Oh, okay.
Well, think about it and see if you can come up with
Thank you, though.
some ideas, because that would be appreciated. In the chief's report, did everybody read the chief's report? I noticed there was a Christmas parade coming up. I didn't hear of a Christmas parade, so I was just wondering if that's about.
He's gonna have to come before us and discuss it because, and it's a Parks and Recreation Department thing, but nonetheless.
Well, I don't know. Do you want to take that over too? Because I'm sure they'll give you the stuff for the parade. Here you go. Have at it.
I don't want, thanks a lot, Peter, but I don't want to create an atmosphere. We've had more COVID cases recently than we've ever had since it started in this state, 100,000 in this country. And
And the death rate is flatlining or is dropping down.
yeah, it's only 3, 4, 5,000 people dying. Look, I don't want to be personal.
Influenza.
I don't want to be, this ain't got nothing to do with the Parks Department. This has to do with the town of Tilton sponsoring something that might be
Well,
an advice.
Let Parks know then, because we planned it.
We had an event right downtown here just the other day, and I was assured that everybody would be required to wear a mask. Everybody. And yet, there was 15, 20 people walking around downtown without facial coverings. Now, we haven't had an outbreak yet from this, but I don't want to be responsible. You guys, I guess, do what you want, but
Processing, how far along is it, Peter?
Well, it's an ongoing all year. Marina goes hardcore usually late summer. She's been going pounding doors for a couple months now.
I noticed the other day that the city of Concord is having their parade, I believe, if it's a Saturday, the 21st, I believe. Concord is currently tentatively scheduled their Christmas parade. I believe it's for the 21st. I don't know.
Don't they usually do like right after Thanksgiving?
No, it's right
Saturday?
before. It's right before.
Oh, right. Cool.
Yeah, so the 20th or 21st, I believe they are tentatively scheduling their parade. I don't know how they're gonna do the whole social, but their parade route is a lot longer. So you could spread people out, I guess.
Well, if you have a mask, you can be close to each other, I thought. But then again, the science keeps changing, so.
Well, you guys do what you guys are gonna do.
I just have one other thing, actually, I wanted to bring up in my FYI. If you saw on the second page about the discussion I had with Randy Pelletier, I mentioned that last night at the budget committee meeting. You know, when I first came to Tilton, that was one of the issues that I heard a lot about, was the erosion around the. I talked to Rennie about, you know, what, at some point when Tilton Island becomes Tilton's to manage, kind of what would it take what would we need to do if we wanted to try to stop or preserve or protect from further erosion? So he had recommended a couple different hydrologists, he said, to do a velocity study. I did speak with Sean
Sweeney.
From Littleton. He's coming tomorrow to take a look at, just to take a look, to tell us what he thinks it would take. And there was another hydrologist that was recommended, and I got a call and text from him too, but I didn't know if he's gonna stop by. He didn't say exactly when, but I didn't know if anyone wanted to be there when he was there. It's not necessary, if he's fine on his own, but just put it out there.
When is it?
Tomorrow. Yeah,
Pat, didn't we have a study done on this already that should exist somewhere?
They had, to my knowledge, DES came up with a to-do, a general idea of what we should do, and then an estimated cost of what the engineers would cost, and then we halved it, and that's where we put $15,000 each year, because that's what, they didn't come up with exact plans, they said this is what you somewhere should be somewhere downstairs, but it didn't come up, it said you have to shore up this, whatever, in technical terms, but the very general terms, the engineer would come and say, the engineer plan, which was about $60,000. And then we each put in $15,000, 2 years. But Northwood never put up their $15,000.
So we still have an account of $30,000 in it. So
Yeah.
it is 60? Peter?
Can we ask them, can we move the existing granite with non-mechanized means like a come along and tripod and just reset them, no permit, no engineer, no $60,000 plan, and just reset them back as a form of stabilization?
Just temporary, at least till we,
No, that should work for quite a while. And
yeah.
if you drive rebar on front and back, you can pin them in place.
My understanding is, as long as we don't bring machinery,
Correct.
then we can pick them up and move them over. We have this discussion.
Mechanized machinery, you could use a tripod or
Yeah,
a mechanic's.
chain, block and tackle, Eric.
Now that we have a nice historical bridge, would there maybe be grant money available to protect the bridge abutments or footings on either side? Because we're trying to protect that bridge, and I don't know what the damage is, if there's any damage.
I won't know that until the planning study is done, but yeah, that is the point of the planning study, because then that feeds into being able to track grant money to do the repairs and restoration. Yeah. So, yeah.
Which would be good.
Mhm. Is there anybody else that has any
Do
questions?
we know when that becomes ours?
No, but you'll see in the FYI that Senator Guida is going to sponsor legislation to move the boundary lines so that the park will be in Belknap County.
I didn't know if that had to be ours first before that was done.
Yeah, so there, for John Tag, there are a couple of things that have to be done. First, we have to file that legislation, we have to fast track it so it becomes law. Northfield is supportive, and that's the big hurdle. You know, from prior experience, I know when you get in front of these committees, municipal and county government, they want to know that the communities are supporting what you're trying to do. So I'll get letters from this board and the Northfield board, and it'll pass, and they will, again, fast track the legislation so it becomes law, so that by town meeting, when it's on the warrant for both towns, it's already got, that piece is done. It's like putting blocks in motion, you know, in a certain order to get it done. So the goal would be after town meeting, the island's ours.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions for the town administrator? Is there any other business to come before the Board of Selectmen this evening? Yeah, we already went through that. Jeannie had it. It was the membership thing. And if there's no other business, I would make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Good night.
What's that?
Thought we went into that.
Oh, do you want to go to now?
No, I thought so too. 'Cause, you said that- You're talking about what you said during your,
Yeah, I thought you said tonight or in 2 weeks, but.
Yeah, you said we're in 2 weeks, so I just thought it was in 2 weeks. Sorry about that, Pat.
We can open back up.
open that up.
Would you like to?
Violation now, will be a violation in 2 weeks. You want these back for, the agreements for the,
The bid, the real estate.
Oh, yeah, sure.
4:30 tomorrow, Jeannie downstairs.
4:30.
Are we still on camera?